everybody, John here from NoJokeNHL. Welcome back for the 2013-2014 NHL season. If you're new to NoJokeNHL, let me explain what we do here. We wager on hockey exclusively, as you could imagine, and we do it in an unusual fashion. If you're looking for 60% winners and a lock, you're trying to double up your rent tonight and take a big favorite and see what happens, you're in the wrong place. What I like to do is I like to play puck lines and advantage lines, -1/2 in regulation, games to go overtime, three-way betting and things like that. But one of the keys that I usually look to is generally taking things at plus money. I will take a money line from time to time, -130, -150. Sometimes I'll group a couple of those together that I think are really solid plays, and group them together in 2- and 3-team parlays to give us a plus money return on investment. But I always definitely look for the plus return on investment. My winning percentage for the last 2 seasons publicly on Twitter and YouTube is about 42%. So 42% winners. Well, how much profit could a person make at 42% winners and losers? Well, to tell you the truth, over 100 units. Because generally what I do is I go for only plays that are higher than 2-to-1, or or nothing lower than 180 plus 180, and as a result, you only have to go 33% on that to break even. So you see at 42%, we're well above into the profit margin area. Normally if you're betting -110 both ways, if you're not familiar with hockey betting or baseball betting, normally if you think of football spreads -110 both ways, you generally have to click at about 57-58% to have a decent return from the windows. But with this style here with hockey, like I said, it's been very profitable. Excuse me. It's a little unusual, and I get a lot of flack until people finally realize that in the long run you do this. So like I said, if you're just looking for winners today or something like that, you may find them, and you may find them in a hurry, or you may jump on it in a time of a losing streak. Sometimes, like I said, when we're going for these big payouts, we may lose 8, 9, 10 games in a row. So your bankroll should be able to withstand that. Generally, my recommendation is probably take 2% of your bankroll. So whatever it is, you're going to risk 2% on each play, and generally we just do 1 unit at a time. As your bankroll grows, then of course your unit size can grow, because like I said, if you keep that percentage, then your unit size is going to grow, and you'll be able to get more profits that way. I really don't, yeah, sometimes on my own I'll do some things that are, that I like better and things like that, but I definitely don't make any recommendations like that, and I don't do that. The other thing is, if I'm not on a play, generally, there's a lot of games that I really don't have an opinion on. A lot of times with totals, especially in the beginning of the season, I kind of lay off those because, like I said, I usually like to see what kind of production I'm getting out of the teams before I really start doing that anyway. And like I said, with the way totals are done in hockey, it's kind of limited anyway. They're basically asking you to either lay over or under 5.5 or a flat 5. And there's strategies involved with that, and if you look down on the YouTube channel, farther down the timeline, you'll see some videos talking about totals if you want to get my opinion on those. So moving on to tonight's card, we have 3 games on the card and then 3 games tomorrow night. So I'll be back with a short video tomorrow for those games, and then we get bigger cards Thursday, and then of course going into the weekend. So tonight we start off with Montreal-Toronto at 7 p.m. Eastern, and right now we have Montreal -130, come back on Toronto +110. This is moving in Toronto's favor. This opened up at -135, -140. There was a couple +120s out there with Toronto, so if you grab those, you're on the right side of the line move here. I'm not sure what to expect from Montreal tonight. Toronto is a pretty live team. Of course, they had the very, very disappointing loss last year in the playoffs, up 4-1 with 7 minutes left to go in the first round of the playoffs against the Boston Bruins, and ended up coughing up 3 goals in regulation and then 1 in overtime to allow the Bruins to move on and eventually go to the Stanley Cup Final. So not sure how that dark cloud's going to be hanging over their head, but you know, like I said, people are expecting some decent things out of Toronto. You know, they should be a decent team. Montreal, on the other hand, I'm not too sure. They kind of were really outplayed by the Ottawa Senators last year in the playoffs. Carey Price wasn't really as solid as he normally is in the playoffs, so again, I'm not really sure what to do there. This is probably an excellent game lining up for what I call a reverse puck line. If you're in a book that offers alternative lines, and not a lot of them do, especially the ones that are in the States, you know, if you're in Canada or whatever, there's a couple more outs that do this, but in the States there's really only one, and that's 5 dimes. But they offer -1.5 on both teams, the underdog and the favorite. And so in this case, we can get Montreal -1.5 plus 220, and the -1.5 on Toronto is plus 335. So looking back in the history between these two teams, the last 10 games, 8 of them have been won by either team at more than 1.5 goals. So this sets up for a very wide open style kind of game where, like I said, whoever wins the game wins it handily. The other thing, interesting trend about this series is that the home team has only won 2 out of the last 10 in this series as well. So that's favoring Toronto here in that trend. The regulation lines, Toronto -0.5 in regulation, plus 174, -0.5 in regulation on Montreal, plus 123. Over-under total set at 5.5. Even money on the over and under is lined at -120. And like I said, I'm going to be laying off that. And like I said, with the wide open style that these two play, not looking like a likely overtime here. So but betting the three-way, betting the three-way for the draw, even though it's a juicy plus 315, probably not a good move in this game here. Moving on to the next game, the feature game on NHL or NBC Sports Network is going to be Chicago hosting the Washington Capitals. Of course, Chicago raising their championship banner tonight, and they collected their rings the other day. And an interesting trend, it's all over Twitter, and it actually happened. These same Blackhawks last year upheld this trend, in which they went into the Los Angeles Kings, watched them raise their banner, and then proceeded to whip them 5-2 in the first game. And to be honest with you, that's what I'm looking at here from the Capitals. I think the Capitals are going to be an improved team. I know a lot of people are going to accuse me of being a homer because I live in the Baltimore area, and Washington's the closest team here, but I'm really not a homer at all. I look at each one of these teams evenly, but I really like what Adam Oates has done with this squad. They started off slow. No camp last year or any constructive practices. They started off very slow. Then they turned it around in early February and ended up coming all the way back and winning the division after a horrible start. They play some great defense or some solid defense in front of Braden Holtby, who is blossoming into a solid goaltender. He got off to a bad start, but like I said, the team wasn't really familiar with what's going on. Probably the biggest thing that I like with the Capitals is the way Alexander Ovechkin played under Adam Oates. Going into the playoffs last year, somebody posted on Twitter about Adam Oates, of course, the centerman for the great sniper Brett Hull. So he's well aware of that superstar sniper mentality, and he certainly got Ovechkin to buy into the system, and he really blossomed with a ton of goals going in. They're probably one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs, even though they lost in 7 to the New York Rangers. They basically went toe-to-toe with them, and then just after leading in Game 6 up in New York, 1-0, only to lose that one in overtime. Came back down the very next night in D.C. I was there at the game myself, and just came out a little flat. The Rangers got out to an early lead, and it was all over for them there. But I look for some big things out of the Capitals this year. Of course, in the Metropolitan Division, it's going to be a very tough division, but I look for them to make a run. So if you want to play a little flyer on the Capitals at plus 8-1 or better, certainly something I would recommend there. As like I said, I think they're going to be rock solid this year. Like I said, they have a good team there. Also a key acquisition with Grabowski from Toronto, who played very well. Had a bunch of assists in the last couple games and netted a goal as well. So I look for big things on the top two lines out of Washington this year. That being said, the line on the Caps tonight, plus 155. Chicago at minus 175. On there, of course, the defending Cup champs. You can see why they would be the favorite. Minus 1.5 on the Capitals, plus 425. Minus 1.5 on the Blackhawks, plus 170. Minus 0.5 in regulation on Capitals, plus 226, and regulation minus 105 for Blackhawks. Over under total set at 5.5. Same price as in the Toronto Montreal. Over is even money at 5.5. Under 5.5, minus 120 on there. Interesting little thing here with the three-way play. Of course, we have a larger favorite, Blackhawks minus 170, biggest favorite tonight. So there's an inflated price on the game to go to overtime, plus 315 on this. And to be honest with you, the Capitals in this preseason played a total of 8 games. 6 of those games went to overtime, including both games with the Blackhawks that they played in this preseason. So, some people put weight into the preseason. I mean, I do a little bit. The teams that are skating great and seem to be in sync generally carry over well into the first couple games of the season. And so so if status quo holds up, that's a very juicy overtime price at plus 315. Final game of the card, out on the West Coast, we have Winnipeg at Edmonton. Winnipeg is plus 125 out there, Edmonton minus 145. This line is falling a little bit in the favor of the Winnipeg Jets. Even though the Winnipeg Jets did not play that well in the preseason, suffering a couple injuries here, as well as Edmonton, but Edmonton went through and pretty much ran through the preseason except for a 4-0 loss to Dallas in their final game. I'm not sure if I want to put too much weight into that as the final preseason game. Minus 1.5 on Winnipeg is plus 375. If you're a believer, they're going to win big there. Minus 1.5 on Edmonton at plus 205. And to be honest with you, I would probably be leaning towards Edmonton in this game. Like I said, based on the way they played in the preseason, both of these teams should be, I think Edmonton is probably the more prepared team for this matchup. Winnipeg is playing on the road here, but then they face a pretty steady amount of games at home over their next 8 games. I think they have 6 of them at home coming up. So not so sure how they're going to show up on the West Coast tonight, but nonetheless, it's the first game of the season, so I'm not going to, travel is not going to ruin anybody or have everybody show up. Everybody's going to be psyched to play and be playing well. I kind of look for Edmonton to the crowd in Edmonton to be fired up. Few key sharp people on Twitter that I follow, Point Shaving, Creature, Stuckey. These guys are high on Edmonton, and I kind of agree with them there. Of course, they got better prices for to win the Cup and win the Western Conference. I wasn't able to get in on those earlier, but but a lot of people expecting some good things out of the Oil this year. The regulation lines, minus 0.5 on Winnipeg in regulation, plus 195, minus 0.5 on Edmonton in regulation, plus 115. Same price on the over-under, even money for over 5.5, under 5.5. You have to lay a 120 premium, and the game to go to overtime is going to be 3-1. I kind of don't think this game is going to be going to go to overtime. These teams haven't played each other in over 2 years, 2.5 years to be exact. So as far as totals or looking back there to see what kind of trend is going to be with the over-under, not really any solid body of work you can go looking at. Like I said, probably the goaltenders in net tonight weren't even around 2.5 years ago when they played that last game. As far as first period action, every one of these games, as far as the over/under, of course, period action, first period over and under 1.5, pretty much a flat number. They just make you lay a premium over and under, and but all these games are minus 110 both ways over/under. So. Interesting trend there in the beginning of the season. Most teams, they're anxious to get off, maybe a little nervous, maybe some rust, things like that. So first period unders seem to be a solid trend, and so at minus 110, it's probably not a bad little trend play right there if you want to take a chance on some unders in these first periods. Like I said, with minus 110, probably some solid value based on the numbers from that from the past couple seasons. Whereas like I said, in the first period of the first game of the season, generally we have tentative teams and scoring can be low. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for today's, today's action. Waited a long time to get to this point. Been tweeting out every now and then about hockey coming up, and it's finally here. I'm definitely psyched. So definitely excited to drop the puck, and even more excited to let's make some money.